Sefirot, divine energy. 6. Probably the best known Hebrew word that Kabbalah is responsible for introducing to non-Hebrew speakers is Sefira, not to be confused with the English sphere and its plural form, Sefirot. This is because the most fundamental model used in Kabbalah is that of the 10 Sefirot. Like many other words used in Kabbalah, the most practical approach for getting a sense of what it refers to is by looking at its various meanings in Biblical Hebrew. In Hebrew, the meanings of a word can be studied only by first finding the word's grammatical root and then looking at all the different usages, the different nouns or verbs that the root is used in. The three-letter root of the word Sefira, Samek Perish, bears three distinct meanings that are relevant to the word itself. First, this root is used in the sense of an emanation of divine light. Sefira is derived from the biblical sapphire, meaning sapphire, whose brilliance is associated with a heavenly throne envisioned by the prophets. 1. The word Sefira also denotes a specific attribute or trait through which God expresses himself in the world. In this sense, God is like an author of a book that expresses himself through the narrative he writes. The Hebrew words for story, sipur, and book, sefer, are from the root of Sefira. Finally, the Hebrew word for number, mispur, derives from the root of Sefira, alluding to the abstract underlying mathematical structure of creation. Because of its varied meanings, special attention must be paid to the word Sefira. Even though in Kabbalah it always designates chapter 6, Sefirot, divine energy, 81, a divine emanation, nonetheless, its meaning fluctuates with the context in which it is being used. In general, the three major contextual usages of the 10 Sefirot are, 1. The 10 manifestations of God. 2. The 10 powers or faculties of the soul. Or, 3. The 10 structural forces of nature. In Hasidic terminology, these three contexts are considered the three basic dimensions of reality. In the terminology of Chassanet they are called divinity, souls, and worlds too. When speaking of the manner in which God's self-expression is perceived, the 10 Sefirot are understood as 10 manifestations of divinity. We find this phenomenon reflected in the 4 letters of the essential name of God, Havaya, each of which corresponds to a Sefira, or group of Sefirot, as will be explained later. When reflecting on how divinity is projected into the living experience of a human being, the Sefirot become manifest as the 10 powers of the soul. Finally, we find that the Sefirot are also cast as the basic structural forces orchestrated in forming our external reality, for example the components of our bodies. In this chapter, we will examine the meaning of each of the 10 Sefirot within all three contexts. Note that though we usually speak of 10 Sefirot, we will be discussing a model with 11 Sefirot. This is because 2 of the Sefirot, crown and knowledge, are 2 dimensions of a single force, as will become clearer as we progress. The model of the Sefirot in Kabbalistic texts, especially those following the revelation of the teachings of the Arizal, the Sefirot are configured, and graphically depicted, as lying along 3 parallel vertical axes, like so. 82. What you need to know about Kabbalah. Keter, crown. Bina, understanding. Chokmah, wisdom. Dat, knowledge. Gevurah, might. Chest, loving kindness. Tiferet, beauty. Hod, acknowledgement. Netzach, victory. Yesod, foundation. Malkut, kingdom. Each axis represents a mode of divine influence within creation. In the idiom of the Tikkun Azor, one of the earlier Kabbalistic texts, the axes are described as one is long, one is short, and one is intermediate. The left axis is relatively short compared to the right axis, while the middle axis acts as a harmonizing and balancing force between them, hence its description as an intermediate. The adjectives short and long associated with the left and right axes provide a visual metaphor for the delimiting, shortening, as it were, powers inherent in the Sefirot lying along the left axis as opposed to the expansive, lengthening, powers of the Sefirot lying along the right axis. In more anthropomorphic language, the long right axis exhibits the attributes of patience and forgiveness, while the short left axis tends to alacrity and chapter 6, Sefirot, divine energy. 83, forceful judgment, with the middle axis providing a balanced inter-inclusion of the two. This visual configuration of the Sefirot is variously referred to in Kabbalistic literature as a ladder, 3 a tree, 4 or as the supernal image of God. According to this last designation, the configuration of the Sefirot suggests both the physical image and the psychological spiritual makeup of the human being, as they were fashioned in the image of God, and God said, "Let us make man in our image, after our likeness." 5. Thus, based on its position in this configuration, each Sefira is associated with a corresponding limb or organ in the human anatomy. 6. The interaction between the various Sefirot is depicted through a network of connecting channels that parallel the flow of divine energy within creation. Their interaction suggests a division of the Sefirot into 3 basic subgroupings, each subgroup reflecting a common dynamic among the Sefirot included therein. The 3 subgroupings are intellectual, or cognitive, wisdom, understanding, and knowledge; emotive, loving-kindness, might, and beauty; behavioral, or active, victory, acknowledgement, and foundation. This accounts for only 9 of the 11 Sefirot appearing in the diagram. The first Sefira, crown, represents the super-intellectual, that which is beyond reason and common sense, normally represented by faith, and in a certain sense can be viewed as superimposed on this diagram from a different plane. The last Sefira, kingdom, can be viewed as either an appendage of the last subgrouping, or as an independent entity receiving all the energies that precede it. Sefirot and divinity. The story of creation. Though the word Sefira should definitely be understood as carrying all 3 of the meanings noted above, when explaining the role of the Sefira as they pertain to the creative process, we 84. What you need to know about Kabbalah. Stress the second meaning which links it with the idea of writing or narrative. The Torah narrative of creation can be found in the first 2 chapters of the book of Genesis. However, in Kabbalistic and Chassidic writings the act of creation is not considered a one-time occurrence. Instead, because creation is meant to reveal the Almighty, it is actually an ongoing process, one that occurs at every instance and through which God is revealed to us anew, and differently, at every moment. Because creation is a recurring process, the role of the Sefirot is even more essential, as every moment of time can be analyzed as based on the particular nature and functionality of the Sefira currently active. It should be stated clearly from the outset that the Almighty, as He exists unto Himself, cannot be understood or even spoken about using any kind of human thought or language. Instead, man can meet God only through the prism of created reality. Through that prism, God appears to us in the form and manner that He chooses. 7. The Torah describes the Almighty in terms of the 13 divine attributes, also called the 13 principles of divine mercy, with which God revealed Himself to Moses. 8. Kabbalah reveals that the 13 divine attributes actually stem from the 10 Sefirot. 9. The sages expound that the Almighty created the world with 10 utterances, or acts of divine speech, that appear in Genesis 10. Each of the 10 utterances is a unique manner in which God reveals Himself, for as already said, the basic prism through which He can be known is the act of creation. In the context of creation, the Sefirot represent the various stages of the process whereby God generated from within His own infinite being the progression of created realms that culminates in our finite physical universe. Outside of the creative process itself, but still within the context of divinity, the Sefirot function together as the components of a single metaphysical structure whose generative imprint can be identified at all levels, and within all aspects, of creation. Like the recurring motifs or themes in a novel, Chapter 6, Sefirot Divine Energy. 85. In this capacity, the model of the 10 Sefirot acts as a repeating structure in the universe, signing everything with the signature of the Almighty. One last word about the Sefirot in general. Each of the 10 Sefirot comprises both a light and a vessel. Simply, the light of the Sefira is the divine energy flowing within it. The vessel is the form or identity that the flow of energy takes in order to relate to some aspect of the world in a specific way. Inasmuch as all existence was created by means of the Sefirot, they constitute the conceptual paradigm for understanding all reality. Divine energy itself appears in one of 3 forms known as light, life force, and energy. 11. Keter, the crown. The first of the 10 Sefirot, corresponds to the superconscious realm of experience. The image of a crown suggests that the faculties pertaining to this Sefira surround and envelope one's consciousness like an aura. That is why in Chassidut, the Sefira of crown is identified with our superconscious realm. It is the spiritual counterpart of all of the soul's faculties and powers that are not directly observable or directly harnessable. But, even as the crown is above and beyond all that is revealed and normal, it is also directly linked with the lowest, most mundane and most present of all the Sefirot, kingdom. As the introduction to the Tikkun Zohar states, the supernal crown is the crown of kingdom. The numerical value of this Sefira's Hebrew name is 620. This is the full number of God's commandments to Israel, the 613 commandments of the written Torah, the 5 books of Moses, together with the 7 commandments of the oral Torah 12. The Hebrew text of the 10 commandments 13 comprises 620 letters, hinting that all 620 commandments of the Torah are included within them. 14 in Kabbalah, the 620 commandments are referred to as 620 pillars of light that project from the crown, the 86. What you need to know about Kabbalah's ceiling, to connect it with the Sefira of kingdom, the floor. In Chassidut it is explained that these pillars of light encompass the souls of Israel that devotedly fulfill the will of the King of Kings. Chokmah, wisdom, the second of the 10 Sefirot, is the first cognitive power of conscious intellect and is the primary force of creation by the Almighty. Wisdom implies the ability to look deeply at some aspect of reality and ponder its essence until one succeeds in uncovering its axiomatic truth. These seeds of truth can then be conveyed to wisdom's companion power, understanding, for the sake of intellectual analysis and development. Wisdom is the primary force in the creative process, as the Psalms declare, "You, God, have made them all with wisdom." 15 The first word of the Torah, 16 Bereshit, which is usually translated as "in the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth," is translated by the Targum Yerushalmi, a Mishnah Akira translation and commentary of the Torah in Aramaic, as, "With wisdom, God created the heavens and the earth." The full numerical value of the first verse of the Torah, "In the beginning God created the heavens and the earth," is 2701, which is the sum of all numbers from 1 to 73, denoted in arithmetic as the triangle of 73. 73 is the numerical value of wisdom. Binah, understanding is the third of the 10 Sefirot, and the second conscious power of intellect in creation. The name understanding implies the ability to examine the degree of truth or falsehood inherent in a particular idea. This power of analysis is associated in the Bible with the sense of hearing. The ear examines words. 17 The most well-known example of this association can be found in the quintessential tenet chapter 6, Sefirot divine energy. 87 of Judaism, "Hear, O Israel, God is our God, God is one." 18 Where the word hearing means understanding. Another intellectual trait identified with the Sefira of understanding is the ability to clearly explain and elucidate concepts, both to oneself and to others, and as such it is symbolized in Kabbalah as the wide river. 19 The Hebrew word for understanding, binah, shares the same grammatical root as the word bin, which means between. Thus understanding possesses the intellectual power to distinguish and differentiate between ideas or objects. Understanding is considered the second brain, sometimes described as lying between wisdom and knowledge. In Kabbalah, wisdom and understanding are referred to as the father and the mother. Their union is called the higher union. The higher union is constant, and therefore these two Sefirot are referred to in the Zohar as two companions that never separate. 20 The higher union is necessary for sustaining our reality, which is manifested through the continual recreation of the world. Numerically, the sum of wisdom equals 73, and understanding equals 67, is 140, which is also the sum of all square numbers from 1 to 7, 1, 4, 9, 16, 25, 36, 49 equals 140. This numerical equality reveals that the union of wisdom and understanding is indeed the spiritual source of the 7 days of creation, the 7 children. In the minds of the father and mother the children are present in their ultimate state of perfection. A square number represents a perfected state of being. Dat, knowledge. The Sefira of knowledge is the third and last of the conscious powers of intellect in creation. 21 Generally, knowledge is only enumerated among the Sefirot when crown is not. This is because knowledge serves as a reflection of the inner dimension of the crown, which itself lies beyond the realm of consciousness. For this same reason, 88 What you need to know about Kabbalah knowledge appears in the configuration of the Sefirot along the middle axis, directly beneath crown. Knowledge is associated with the powers of memory and concentration, powers that rely upon one's sensitivity to the potential meaningfulness of those ideas generated in consciousness through the powers of wisdom and understanding. This sensitivity is in its essence super-rational and derives from the connection that knowledge has to crown. In the Zohar, knowledge is referred to as the key that includes 6:22, similar to the metaphor of a lock and key discussed above. In Chapter 4, knowledge is the intellectual key to the 6 chambers of the heart, a symbolic name for the Sefira from loving-kindness to foundation, and fills them with life force. Each of these chambers, when filled with knowledge, is referred to as a particular daya, meaning an attitude of the soul. The numerical value of daya is 79. And 79. 6 equals 474, the numerical value of dat. Chest, loving-kindness. Loving-kindness is the fourth of the 10 Sefirot, and the first of the emotive attributes within creation. Loving-kindness is represented by the first day of creation. On this day God created the goodly light, the light of loving-kindness for all. In the Torah, the first day of creation is called one day, Yom Echad, which can also mean the day of one. On this day all of creation was embraced as one, in love, by the oneness of the Creator. 23 of the first day of creation it is said in Psalms, by day, God will command his loving kindness. 24 The Hebrew form of the noun for day in this verse, yamim, is neither singular, yam, nor plural, yamim, but rather a form not found elsewhere. As explained in the Zohar, 25 The unique form yamim illustrates that the first day of creation was different from the other days as it was a day that accompanies all days. 26 As the first day of creation. Chapter 6, Sefirot Divine Energy. 89 corresponds to the Sefira of loving-kindness. From this special trait of the first day, we learn that loving-kindness radiates its light to all the other 6 Sefirot, from might to kingdom. The numerical value of loving-kindness is 72, which can also be expressed as 2. 6 squared, a number form which is known in Kabbalah as a double square. Double square numbers are most often found in relation to various, inherent, quantitative features of nature. 27 As such, the number 72 represents the perfected state of the 6 emotive attributes of the heart that correspond to the 6 days of creation. The factor of 2 multiplying 6 squared represents the perfect love and harmony within creation. As one's face is reflected in water, the basic physical symbol of loving-kindness, so is the heart of man to man. 28 Similarly, the Zohar 29 speaks of 72 bridges of loving-kindness that connect together, in perfect harmony, all of created reality. Gevura, might is the 5th of the 10 Sefirot, and 2nd of the emotive attributes in creation. Might is associated with the power to restrain one's innate urge to bestow goodness upon others, when the recipient of that good is judged to be unworthy and liable to misuse it. As the force which measures, assesses the worthiness of creation, Gevura is also referred to in Kabbalah as the attribute of judgment, Midat Hadin. It is the restraining quality of might that allows one to overcome one's enemies, be they from without or from within, that is, one's evil inclination. Loving-kindness and might act together to create an inner balance in one's attitude to one's environment. While loving-kindness seeks to draw others near, might reserves the option of repelling those deemed undeserving. As such, loving-kindness and might are the forces at work behind the sage's saying, the left arm repels, while the right arm draws near, 30 and are thus seen to correspond to the right and left arms, respectively. 90. What you need to know about Kabbalah. Though seemingly opposites, ultimately, it is the Sefira of might that manifests the power and forcefulness to implement one's innate desire for loving-kindness. Only by the power of the Sefira of might can loving-kindness penetrate the coarse, opposing surface of reality. The numerical value of the Hebrew name of might is 216, which is 3 times the numerical value of loving-kindness. 72. In the Torah, the concept of anything occurring 3 times represents strength, or permanence. 31 Thus, a phenomenon that manifests or repeats itself 3 times becomes a firm and well-established reality. As such, might is indeed the affirmation of the reality of loving-kindness. The numerical value of might, 216, is also a cube number. 6. 6. 6. In the Torah, the physical manifestations of this cube were the tablets of the covenant on which the 10 commandments were carved that Moses received at Sinai, which were 6 by 6 by 6 handbreadths. Indeed, the sages describe that the Torah was given to Moses and Israel from the mouth of the might, that is, of God. 32. It is most significant that the name of no other Sefira is used by the sages as a connotation for God himself. In relation to the giving of the Torah, might implies God's essential ability to contract and concentrate his infinite light and strength into the finite letters of the Torah, especially those letters engraved on the tablets of the 10 Commandments. 33. Figuratively, it is the two arms of loving kindness and might together that serve God in creating all of reality. The numerical sum of the Hebrew names of loving kindness, 72, and might, 216, is 288, which is also the number of the fallen sparks of holiness, from the primordial cataclysm of the breaking of the vessels, which permeate all of created reality, implying that our ability to perform the basic task of sifting through creation to redeem these sparks is undertaken with these two basic faculties of our soul. Through the dual effort of loving kindness and might, these fallen sparks are redeemed and elevated to return and unite with their ultimate source. In a universal sense, this is the secret of the coming of the Messiah at the end of days, primarily a manifestation of God's infinite loving kindness, and the chapter 6, Sefirot divine energy. 91 Resurrection of the dead, primarily a manifestation of God's infinite might. Tiferet, beauty. Beauty is the sixth of the 10 Sefirot, and the third of the emotive attributes within creation. Beauty appears in the configuration of the Sefirot along the middle axis, directly beneath knowledge, or beneath crown, when knowledge is excluded. It is associated with the power to reconcile conflicting inclinations, namely those of loving kindness and might, by finding their shared harmony, so as to allow for focused compassion. The compassionate nature that results out of the harmonious blend of loving kindness with might accounts for beauty's designation in Kabbalah as the attribute of mercy, Midat Harakamim. The Hebrew name of this Sefira, Tiferet, is indeed a type of beauty. In Hebrew there are 8 different synonyms for beauty. More precisely, Tiferet connotes the type of beauty that manifests itself through an elegant blend of emotive gestures implicit within its expression. Together with loving kindness and might, which it harmonizes, beauty forms the crux of the emotional realm. The numerical value of the Hebrew word Tiferet is 1081, the triangle of 46. With the other two primary emotional Sefirot, the numerical value of these 3 Sefirot is 72. 216 1081 equals 1369. 1369 is a perfect square, 372, signifying that these 3 Sefirot together exist in perfect interinclusion. Interinclusion, one of the most central concepts in Kabbalah and Chassidut, means that every part of a whole reflects all of its parts, a quality that is physically exhibited in a hologram. Thus, when in a harmonious state, the emotive realm exhibits a unity of purpose and calmness. 1369 is also the number of letters in the chapter of the Torah that precedes the 10 Commandments. 34 This chapter describes the preparation of Israel to receive the Torah at Sinai. Indeed, the 92. What you need to know about Kabbalah Torah itself corresponds to the Sefira of beauty, and the 10 Commandments were given to Moses on 2 tablets with 5 commandments engraved upon each, corresponding to the 5 fingers of each of the divine hands, the 2 Sefirot of loving kindness and might. 1369 is also the numerical value of the conclusion of the 2nd verse of the Torah, and the Spirit of God hovered upon the face of the waters. 35 The Torah is usually likened to water as it travels downhill, from a high place, its seat with the Almighty, to a low place, our mundane reality. Thus, the waters in this phrase symbolize the Torah, while God's Spirit hovering upon the face of the waters alludes to the Torah chapter that precedes the giving of the Torah and is noted, comprises 1369 letters. Netzach, victory. Victory is the 7th of the 10 Sefirot, and the first of the pragmatic or behavioral attributes within creation. Victory is associated with the power to overcome those obstacles that stand in the way of realizing one's aspiration to bestow goodness upon creation. Insofar as the Hebrew name of this Sefira denotes both victory and eternity, it can be said that the ultimate victory enjoyed by a person is that over death itself, the final impediment to the pursuit of loving-kindness, the Sefira directly above victory, considered its source. Before killing Agag the king of Amalek, the prophet Samuel said, "The eternity of Israel, that is, God shall neither deceive nor regret, for he is not human that he may regret." 36 God here is called the eternity of Israel, Netzach Uriel. 37 Unlike a human being who regrets, thereby changing his mind, the Almighty is eternal in the sense that his will and thought are eternal and never changing. From this verse and its description of the eternal, we learn that the Sefira of victory eternity connotes standing firm and never regretting. As such, the power of the Sefira of victory eternity is overcoming our mortal fear of death and thereby not entertaining regrets or doubts when faced with death. Chapter 6, Sefirot Divine Energy. 93 As explained in Chesed, moral and emotional clarity are specifically attainable at moments of Mesert Nefesh, literally, a willingness to sacrifice one's own being for God. This epitome of Jewish willpower lies latent, as explained in the Tanya, in every Jewish soul and is associated with the Sefira of victory eternity. The willingness to sacrifice one's own being stems out of the understanding that God's being is eternal, the eternity of Israel, and that by clinging to him one is in touch with eternity. Had, acknowledgement is the eighth of the 10 Sefirot, and the second pragmatic or behavioral attribute within creation. It is also closely linked with the Sefira of victory, and in many ways they are considered a couple. Acknowledgement is associated with the power to continually seek the realization of one's life goals with a determination and perseverance born out of a deep inner commitment. The Hebrew word ha denotes acknowledgement, or splendor, or majesty. The acknowledgement of a supreme purpose in life inspires the total submission of self to that purpose. These are the two characteristics of a true leader or king and serve to endow one with an aura of splendor and majesty. 38 The sages relate that for the kings of the house of David, the ability to acknowledge a higher purpose translates into an actual physical trait. The truly suitable king was able to physically wear the special crown used by David. The crown fit him perfectly. 39 The notion of acknowledging a higher purpose ties acknowledgement directly with the Sefira of crown, the source of higher, super-rational beliefs and ideals. Acknowledgement also manifests as the power to express thanksgiving, or gratitude. In this capacity, acknowledgement complements the giving attribute of the Sefira of loving-kindness. As a pair, victory and acknowledgement are referred to in the Zohar as two halves of a single body. 40 Often in Kabbalah Day 94. What you need to know about Kabbalah are considered as one Sefira. Indeed, in the human form they are seen to correspond to the right and left legs, which two can only perform their function of walking in unison. Another symbol used for victory and acknowledgement together is that of scales of justice 41. Whereas victory corresponds to the right scale, which accrues merits, acknowledgement is symbolized by the left scale, which symbolically acknowledges that everything we receive in life is not due to merit, but rather a gratis gift from God. Yesod, foundation is the 9th of the 10 Sefirot, and the 3rd of the behavioral or habitual attributes. Foundation is associated with the power to contact, connect, and communicate with external reality, which in Kabbalah is represented by the Sefira of kingdom. To use a physical analogy, the foundation of a building grounds, or connects it with its environs, making sure that it does not move. In the body, foundation is identified with the procreative organs and serves to ground the individual to the world by ensuring his or her continuation in the generations to come. Hasidic teachings explain that the ability to procreate manifests an infinite power within the finite context of the created human being. As such, foundation is referred to as the small limb of man, the minute, in quantity that holds the large, the infinite, in quality. 42 Indeed, each individual person is minute relative to all the generations that will be born from him. Foundation is also the small and narrow bridge between the infinite potential of procreation that flows into it and its actual manifestation in the progeny of man. For this reason, the Sefira of foundation is identified in the Torah with the Tzaddik, the holy, righteous individual. As the Proverbs teach, the Tzaddik is the foundation of the world. 43 In particular, this refers to the one, consummate Tzaddik of the generation. In the very body of the Tzaddik, which is finite and limited in time and space, God's infinite light and creative life. Chapter 6, Sefirot divine energy. 95 force become manifest. The Zodiac procreates on the spiritual plane as well as on the physical plane. He experiences procreation in the inner eye of his consciousness, in the continual flow of new insights and true innovations in the study and understanding of the Torah. His procreative power also arouses and inspires the souls of his generation to return to God and the Torah. Foundation is also referred to as the covenant, Brit, referring, in particular, to the covenant of circumcision that God made with Abraham. In Kabbalah, it refers to the covenant enjoining the two divine attributes of truth, emet, and peace, shalom, of which the prophet says, "Truth and peace shall you love." 44 Truth is the inner experiential quality of the Sefira of foundation, while peace is the gift that God gives to the Sefira of foundation, that is, to one who has rectified his power of foundation. 45 In particular, Abraham represents the origin of love in the soul. God described Abraham as the one who loves me. 46 Energetically, all of Abraham's loving kindness flows down, as water, to become concentrated in foundation. There it creates the covenant between the absolute truth of the Torah and the peace that results from good deeds of the Zodiac, performed with love for Israel. Malkut, kingdom is the last of the 10 Sefirot, and appears in the configuration of the Sefirot at the bottom of the middle axis, directly beneath foundation. Kingdom is associated with the power of expression, therefore it is often referred to as the world of speech insofar as the spoken word represents the essential medium of self-expression, allowing one not only to reveal himself to others but to guide and influence them as well. Hence, speech allows one to exercise authority and kingship, the literal meaning of the Hebrew word malkut. Kingdom also serves as the means for establishing identification with outer reality. Exercising kingship requires utmost sensitivity to the needs of the realm that one seeks to rule. 96. What you need to know about Kabbalah. Hence, kingdom demands that every agent of influence within creation also consider itself to be a recipient vis-à-vis the divine source of all authority, for only then can the ultimate good of the physical realm be assured. One can only ascend to the higher Sefirot through the portal of kingdom. This is the gate that leads to God, the righteous shall pass through it. 47 In one's devoted service to God, this means receiving upon oneself, in total commitment, the yoke of the kingdom of heaven. The numerical value of the Hebrew word malkut is 496, which is the triangle of 31, that is, the sum of all numbers from 1 to 31. In addition to being a triangular number, 496 is a perfect number, that is, a number which equals the sum of all of its divisors. The first four perfect numbers are 1, 6, 28, 496. Thus, the 10 Sefirot reach their consummate end with a perfect number. In summary, these are the Sefirot and their powers: left axis, middle axis, right axis. Keter crown / superconsciousness. Bina understanding analysis. Chakma wisdom cognitive / insight intellectual Sefirot dat. Knowledge concentration. Gevura might restraint. Chest loving kindness. Giving emotive Sefirot Tiferet beauty balance. Hod acknowledgement perseverance. Netzach victory pragmatic / overcoming obstacles behavioral Sefirot Yesod. Foundation communication. Malkut kingdom self-expression chapter 6, Sefirot divine energy. 97 Notes. 1. Exodus 24:10 and Ezekiel 1:26, 10:1. 2. Based on a letter written by the Baal Shem Tov, the founder of Chesed. See in length in the introduction to the Hebrew letters. 3. The image of the ladder is based on Jacob's ladder described in Genesis 28:12. Usually, the four-runged ladder that Jacob saw symbolizes the four worlds we will discuss later. Thus, the ladder serves as a link between the model of the Sefirot and the model of the worlds illustrated in the chart on pages 135. 4. Based on the major collection of the Arizal's teachings, titled Eitz Chaim, the Tree of Life. 5. Genesis 1:26. 6. See Body, Mind, and Soul, pages 24 and 74 for the charts of the Sefirot and their corresponding organs and physiological systems. 7. The question arises whether God's choice of how to reveal himself reflects his true essence, in which case, though we cannot fathom his essence, we can gather something about it from the Torah, the blueprint of all that is, or, whether the prism that God chooses does not reflect his essence. In Kabbalah, this question remains open. In Chassidut, the former view is openly condoned, making in the end for a stronger feeling of the immanence rather than the absolute transcendence of the Almighty. This topic is covered in length in the article Shlosha Chushim, 3 Intuitions, in the Hebrew volume, Isai 8. Exodus 34:6-7. Later, the Almighty revealed himself again to Moses through a similar set of 9 divine attributes, Numbers 14:18. On the relationship between the 13 divine attributes and the 9 divine attributes, see in depth in the Hebrew volume Emunah Yemudiyut, Faith and Consciousness. Let it suffice here to say that together the 13 and the 9 correspond to the 22 letters of the Hebrew alphabet. 9. One of the first times that the relation of the 10 Sefirot to the 13 attributes of divine mercy is mentioned in a well-documented source, is the enigmatic query addressed to Rav Hai Gaon, one of the sages of the Gunite period, 9th century CE, by 98. What you need to know about Kabbalah his disciples, we know 10 Sefirot, but we do not know 13 inches, see Rabbi Moses Cordovero, Pards Rimnim 1:7. 10. Mishnah Evot 5:1. Rosh Hashanah 32a. The Medrash of Mezrich states that the 10 utterances with which God created the world correspond to the 10 commandments, with which he gave the Torah that rectifies the world. For more on this correspondence see The Art of Education, pages 237 ff. 11. Tanya, Sher HaYichid Verha Emunah, chs. 11-12. For an explanation of these 3 concepts, light, life force, and energy, see the introduction to the Hebrew letters, pages 2 ff. 12. These 7 commandments are, washing hands before meals, blessings, enclosing communities for Shabbat, before food, commandments, and special occasions, lighting Shabbat candles, reading the book of Esther on Purim, lighting Hanukkah candles, and praising God by reciting chapters 113 to 118 of Psalms on special occasions. All 7 can be easily remembered with a mnemonic acronym, pronounced Nabya Simcha, and which means moves joyfully. 13. Exodus 22-14. 14. In fact, there is a Chassidic commentary on the 5 books of Moses, Heikel Habracha, by the Komarna Reba, that explains the correspondence of each particular letter to the Torah's commandments, as they appear. 15. Psalms 104:24. 16. Genesis 1:1. 17. Job 12:11, 34:3. In a beautiful example of self-reference, the initials of the words, the ear examines words, in Hebrew, form the word truth. 18. Deuteronomy 6:4. 19. Genesis 37:37. I Chronicles 1:48. 20. Zohar 3:4a. 21. The Hebrew word that can be translated into English as knowledge, consciousness, or perspective. See pages 67, note 4. 22. Zohar, Sifra Detznuda, 2, 177a. 23. The numerical values of the Hebrew words for one and love are both 13. Chapter 6, Sefirot Divine Energy, 99:24. Psalms 42:9. 25. Zohar 3, 191b. 26. Ebed. I, 46a. 27. The most striking example being that they are the fundamental numbers underlying the periodicity of the periodic table of the elements. This topic will be covered in depth in a forthcoming volume on Kabbalah and science. 28. Proverbs 27:19. 29. Zohar 3, 227a. 30. Sota 47a. 31. Bava Metzia 106b. The numerical value of this word in Hebrew is 120, the number of years in a consummate lifetime. 120 divides into 3 itself, 120 equals 3. 40. Thus, the consummate life comprises 3 40-years phases. Each period of 40 years represents another stage of the pleasure of being alive. Moses passed away on his 120th birthday. His life consisted of 3 distinct phases, or lifetimes, each lasting 40 years. Therefore he is considered to have a permanence of life. That is one reason for why the Zohar says that Moses did not pass away, he is merely hidden from our sight, just as the moon does not cease to exist but is only hidden from our sight once a month, Zohar I, 37b 38a. And elsewhere. 32. Makkah 24a. In Hebrew, the numerical value of the phrase from the mouth of the might is 351, the triangle of 26, the value of God's essential name, Havaya. In Chassidut it is explained that might connotes God's unique ability to carry opposites, which in the giving of the Torah manifests as his ability to permeate the finite letters and words of the Torah with his infinite light and essence. 33. As noted by various commentaries, that the 10 commandments allude to all 613 commandments of the Torah. See Rashi to Exodus 25:12. See also footnote 14, above. 34. Exodus chapter 19 and the first verse of chapter 20. 35. Genesis 1:2. 36. 1 Samuel 15:29. About Kabbalah 37. God here is not referred to by the word eternity alone, but by the composite idiom the eternity of Israel. As noted above, only the name of the Sefira of might is used as a direct connotation for God. Nonetheless, eternity, which also means victory, and might are connected, as they are the 2 Sefirot that relate to the supernatural power to overcome war or conflict, that is, to the divine power to overcome the trials and tribulations of this world. 38. See The Art of Education, pages 249-50. 39. Avodah Zarah 44ab. According to Rashi, the royal crown had a bar, spanning its diameter on the inside, and could only be worn by a person with a corresponding recess in his skullbone. Rashi to the words Shabbakish leholmo velo halamto in Sanhedrin 21b. 40. Zohar 3, 236a. 41. Sha'ari Ahava Veritzin, Gates of Love and Will, pages 225. 42. See Bereshit Rabbah 5:7-43. Proverbs 10:25. 44. Zechariah 8:19. The initials of truth and peace. Spell the Hebrew word for fire. Since foundation is the Sefira of covenants, these initials allude to the first word of the Bible, in the beginning, whose letters are explained in the Tikkun Zohar to be a permutation of the 2 words a covenant of fire. Thus, the entire Torah begins with this idea. Even more amazingly, when the value of truth equals 441, and peace equals 376, is added to the word fire equals 301, the sum is 1118, the numerical value of the Shema, the quintessential statement of Jewish faith in the unity of the Almighty. 1118, indicating the centrality of truth and equals peace in the covenant made between God and the Jewish people. 45. Indeed, Sefer Yetzirah 4:1 reveals that one who does not keep one's covenant transforms peace, the gift of foundation, into war. 46. Isaiah 41:8. 47. Psalms 118:20.